Hi, so this video is going to explain the features of the assessment task, which is planning a unit of inquiry based on the Wilson and Murdoch model of inquiry-based learning. So focusing on your specialisation group, you're going to be working collaboratively in your specialisation workshops to create this unit. Now, your group members may not be enrolled in the same tutorial group as you. However, you will be able to work on your documents via an online platform such as Google Docs. Okay, so there's two sections to this assignment. We have the collaborative section and an individual, and you will be assessed collaboratively in the first two and obviously individually in the second two. So take note of the rubric here. It's pretty self-explanatory. We've got sections for collaboration and sections for individual, but it's it's weighted 50-50. So focusing on the collaborative section first, we have a cover page. So within the cover page, this is like the overall rationale of your thinking when you're actually creating your unit. So this is where you'll introduce your unit, explaining your intention, your rationale. Why did you actually pick this unit? How your students going to be engaged, the curriculum descriptors, what type of experiences students will be having. The next section will be looking at how have you catered for differentiation. So what are you expecting students to achieve by learning this way? Connecting your pedagogical approach to how you're engaging students, for an example. So you need to explain your reasoning connecting to the policy documents. So the 5 E's: engage, explore, and explain. HITS outcomes, only 1, which is looking at setting goals. 2, structuring lessons. 3, explicit teaching. And 10, differentiation. And the principal practice actions 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, 2.4, and 5.1 only. So connecting the documents to your reasoning. Then the last section on the cover page is linking what you've learnt about authentic learning experiences to your unit. So looking at the Lombardi article to unpack each of these features within authentic learning experiences, how are you catering for each? So under each headings, outline and explain how you're achieving those in your unit. So looking at the unit template, insert the year level and the duration. Okay, the key concepts. What key concepts are the students going to be immersed in? Looking at the Murdoch article in table 2, you can list them here. Here, the key learning. Coming from the curriculum statements, just summarise here. We've got curriculum outcomes. Don't write the code, write the full strand. You can just cut and paste from the Victorian documents. Here we've got the inquiry questions. So thinking of a how question. So it's a how question that students will be answering at the completion of the unit. It's an overarching question. It's a broad inquiry question, and it usually starts with a how. Underneath that, you'll have contributing questions, about 4 to 6, which help unpack that broad how question. So typically they're what and why questions, okay? So in answering those what and why questions, you are answering that how question. These also obviously need to link to the Victorian curriculum. Meta-language keywords. What meta-language and keywords are students going to be experiencing? What discourse do they need to know? You list them here. Any key skills they will be experiencing and learning. So here will just be a brief discussion on differentiated learning and integrated learning. So be brief because you've already discussed that in the cover page. Here you're talking about any activities the students will be immersed in, just overall experiences. And here we've got student prior learning. So you'll need to have a look at the curriculum documents in previous years, have a look at what students have been experiencing, what they've possibly understood in terms of your unit, how it links to your unit, and what does this mean in terms of your unit? So does your unit provide new experiences and new understandings? Obviously it will, but why is this important? Okay, so focusing on the Murdoch and Wilson stages, the tuning in stage here, okay, the learning experiences that you're going to get the students to undertake is all about engagement, gauging for prior knowledge, designing tasks that are going to make it visible to you how the students are thinking. So this is all about gathering evidence to help you understand where students are in terms of their thinking and levels of understanding. So it's connecting the new information with the known information for the students. So you can see the link to the importance of this cell here. Finding out, so using a variety of methodologies to investigate information. Student should be the researcher here, so they should be gathering data firsthand. So tasks that you choose should reflect this and emphasize this. So you could engage with experts, conduct interviews. Students are collecting data, they're experimenting, they're using film, they're observing, they're doing field work, things like that. Sorting out, looking at tasks designed to make meaning of the gathered information in finding out. So it's the organising and the analysing of the information from the previous phase. So the students are communicating, they're collecting further information, they're revisiting original ideas and making connections to the data in the previous stage. Going further, this section is allowing the students to have more opportunities for individual learning. So there's a real differentiated focus here, and this is where they can raise further questions. Reflection here, this is where students outline what they know and what they can do with this knowledge and how they use this and how they can use this knowledge. Identifying changes in understanding, is there an action that they can take? They're connecting their knowledge to the wider community and possibly being able to take an action in the taking action phase. So this is actually creating and doing the action. So students are thinking, all right, now I know this about the information, whatever you've learned, how can I make a difference in the community? And looking at the last column, what assessment experiences are the students immersed in? What pre-assessments are you going to be using? What evidence are you looking for? So what type of meta language are you looking for to indicate that students have learnt? What skills and how do they demonstrate? How do students demonstrate this? How do students get the feedback they need? So think of feedback not only just coming from you, what other sources can students gain feedback from? How are students demonstrating their understanding? And what other evidence are you collecting to determine, your learning intentions have been achieved? And then down here we have references. So make sure you include any references using Harvard referencing in this section. But throughout, you can just put URLs or you can just put a bracket to the textbook and include the extended reference here. So you don't need to include that necessarily in this section. All right, looking at the individual reflection. So at the end of the unit, you need to complete this by yourself, looking at your learning focus and your learning outcomes as a teacher in this unit. So what skills have you developed, or what your skills are you going to develop during this unit? So this section here, you should be thinking about before you do the unit and while you're doing the unit. You're looking at HITS and AITSL outcomes, which you want to improve, and explain the outcome in terms of connecting the lessons in the unit planning and the intended outcomes for your students as well as yourself. So how have you incorporated the Victorian Teaching and Learning Model? So looking at engage, explore, explain, looking at the HITS outcomes from the cover page, but this is in terms of your own reflection. Student evaluation for further planning. So what criteria are you going to use to evaluate the desired results? What tells you students have actually learnt? What are you going to do next? What are they going to do next? These two here is more of a reflection on the actual assessment tasks. So discuss what it was like working collaboratively in planning. How well did your group work? Okay, so this is being a bit critical. It could be, discussing the possible challenges that you guys undertook in the experience. And throughout this experience of working collaborative, how's this informed your professional practice? What are your strengths and weaknesses? Because you're going to have to be working in teams when you work in the teaching profession. So what does this mean in terms of your teaching? And the last thing is a reflection of personal development. So a short reflection about your experiences completing this unit, how have your thinking changed from the beginning to the end? And I want you to connect the AITSL standards that you've achieved within this experience. So just don't write the standards, explain concisely how you've actually demonstrated or achieved those standards. So pick a few, don't pick them all, there are too many. Pick a few that you have demonstrated and give a reason. Discuss some areas that you need to work on moving forward. So that's practice changed. Okay, so I've explained the cover page, which is setting the rationale, the template of the inquiry-based unit. The individual section is going to come from a sequential sequence of lesson plans from one of the inquiry steps. So if you're in a group of 3, each of you will have a different inquiry step within the unit. So one of you might have tuning in, the other finding out, sorting out, etc. So for approximately 1 week, because we understand that some of these sections take longer than a week, so just write lesson plans for approximately 1 week. We want you to use the specialisation teacher's preferred template. The second thing is the reflection of intended outcomes. I've discussed this. Okay, so this is you as a teacher. How have you connected to HITS and what AITSL outcomes have you achieved? Thinking about where to next as well. So what do you need to look at in the future? So take note what it is required to achieve a high distinction. The key to achieving a high distinction is making sure that you connect what you have covered throughout the workshops, throughout the tutorials within your unit.